Hello, Orod. Good morning.
Hi, Soma. Good morning. How are you?
I'm doing okay. What about you?
I'm doing actually really good. Today we have
Nice.
a very rainy day. Yesterday it was hot in Melbourne, like over 30, and
Mm,
today it's not cold, but really rainy.
okay. We are about to get those weather in Sydney. It has been raining, but from tomorrow it will be above 30 for the
Oh,
rest.
nice.
Yeah.
It's a beach day tomorrow.
It is a beach day tomorrow. Unfortunately, it's also a work day, so maybe not for us, only for the kids who are not going to school.
Just ditch it, ditch the word. Don't tell your boss though.
It's a secret. Well, okay. So now that we have got the weather out of our way, what are we going to talk about today?
So last week we talked about lead time and how we can measure team performance, and I think we promised our audience to dig a little bit into lead time, how to read the lead time, and how we can use lead time to be predictable, and also measure how we can improve the agility and customer satisfaction. So I think today I'm gonna show everyone the histogram or lead time distribution chart, which is one of the key report in Kanban, and that's the report we use to be predictable.
Yes.
So I would suggest our podcast audience to watch the video, watch this episode on YouTube. We will share the YouTube channel on the podcast as well. And also I'm going to share the article that we're going to discuss today as well. So in case if people wants to have a look later so they can watch it. So I'm going to share my screen.
Awesome. Yes, it's visible.
All right. And to be honest with you, I'm not sure how it will be recorded. So this is the first time I'm sharing and recording. So hopefully everything looks good. All right.
Okay, let's do it. So, okay, so what I'll do, I'll take the persona of our audience and ask you questions, and you can
Mm-hmm.
take us through it so that, like we are covering all the perspective. So the first
Yeah,
question that I have,
sounds good.
um, now I'm a team member, Orok, and
Yes.
I would like to understand the basics of why should I look into a histogram to understand how the team is performing. Could you take us
Yeah,
from the
absolutely. All right. So first of all, this is basically histogram or lead time distribution chart. On the um, the x-axis, this one,
Mm,
the horizontal one. So we
yeah.
have lead time. So 1, 5, 10, stuff like that. So all
Mm,
represent days. So that's 1 day, 5 days. It can be, so at the moment, this report, so we categorize the lead time. So basically, one means everything that finished within 1 day, and
yeah.
five means everything finished between 1 to 5 days, stuff like that.
Yeah.
It can be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 days, based on what makes sense. And the y-axis, this one, the vertical one, represent the number of work. So, for
Mm,
example, if we look at the first bar, it shows that 25 works, which
mm,
can be individual task or user story or anything,
mm.
finished within 1 day.
Yes.
And 65 works finish between 4 to 5 days. So
Yeah.
that's basically how we can read the histogram or lead time distribution chart.
So what I'll do, I'll try to summarize and then you can correct me if I'm
Yeah.
getting it the right way. So what I understood till now that whenever we are looking at the histogram, the first thing that we are noticing is the x-axis, which is
Mm-hmm.
actually lead time. Now, the lead time, you can put it like, whatever it makes sense for the team. In this one, the picture that we are looking at, here it is categorized as like, 1, 5, 10 in the increment of 5. But
Mm-hmm.
again, it could be anything. It could have been 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, like anything. But
Yes.
and in x-axis, as it is talking about the lead time in days, but
Mm-hmm.
in y-axis, it's talking about the number of work that is being completed. So if we
That's
look
right.
at the first one, it says 25 and 1. That means 25 tasks or 25 stories, whatever is the unit that the team has
Mm-hmm.
decided to measure. Those number of things have been completed in those days. And that's
Yes.
how we are grouping them to understand that how the team is performing. Is that right, Orod?
That's absolutely correct.
Cool. Okay, what's next? What can we get more information? Like, what are the other information that we can get out of it?
Yes. So the next thing, so when we collect the data and categorize them based on the lead time, then the next thing is how many works. So basically, the next thing is what is our customer expectation or SLA, service level expectation or service level agreement between the delivery team and the customer, right?
Mm,
And then we look at the chart to see how many of the work
mm,
completed within the SLA. So for example, if the SLA is 15 days,
yeah.
then we can say 86% of
Mm,
the work completed within the SLA.
mm,
So 86% of the work finished basically when the customer expected.
mm,
So another thing that we can learn and use from histogram is how we can basically talk to and negotiate with the customer, right? So for example, if the customer comes with a new task and say, hey guys, when do you finish this one? We
mm,
can say historically, 86% of the time, this task finished within 15 days. So we can guarantee 86%
mm,
guarantee to finish it in 15 days, and we meet the expectation and SLA. If the customer says 86% is not good enough for me, I
mm,
need 100% guarantee,
mm,
then we can say, all right, we need to start it 25 days before the due date or before customer expected to
mm,
be finished exactly when the customer expects.
mm,
So customer either needs to give the task to us 25 days before,
mm,
right? At the right time. So give it to us when we expect it, so we can give it back to you when you expect it.
mm.
Does that make sense?
Um, yes, it does. So I
Oh,
do have a question on that. So
yes.
if we like from the like diagram here, the image,
Mm-hmm.
we can see that, like everything is done by the 25th day.
Yes.
So this is again historic data. Now, if when we are going to a customer with a new piece of work that
Mm-hmm.
has been coming into our queue, and let's say we haven't done something totally similar to that, like we have done somewhat similar.
Mm-hmm.
So can we go back to our customer and say that 25-day is like we can complete it the 100%, or we should have some kind of buffer to that?
So correct me if I understand correctly.
Yep.
So what you're saying is customer come with a task.
Yeah.
We haven't estimated. So basically, without estimating the size of the work, we can guarantee 86% finish in 15 days
Mm-hmm.
or 100% 25 days. Of course, there is no 100% guarantee because there is always a chance that something takes more than that. But this shows us what happened historically, and we expect anything happened before, it's more likely to happen again, right?
Mm,
Another thing is customer can come and say, I need this in next 5 days
mm,
or 10 days. So basically based on this chart,
mm,
70% of the work finish within 10 days, right? And 70% is not good enough, right?
mm,
Let's assume.
mm,
In this case, we need to expedite the work,
mm,
which means we need to drop everything else and focus on this one because this is very important for the customer and we have to finish it as soon as possible. So that's another thing it can help us. So basically, by having lead time distribution chart and collecting all the data, all the historical data, without estimating the work, we can have something to negotiate and be predictable.
mm. Well, that's
Another
that's
thing, yes, please continue.
uh actually what I was trying to say, and this is a very important point. Like if I am a team member or
Mm-hmm,
I'm delivery manager, product
mm-hmm.
owner, product manager, it's really important for me to understand that how the distribution chart can help me to negotiate.
That's
Now,
right.
based on this, the first thing that what you have mentioned, it helps me to negotiate the timeline. If the
Mm-hmm,
expectation is that it needs to happen within 5 days and the 100% of it,
mm-hmm.
and can actually talk about the historic data. Let's say this histogram is the distribution chart is based on the data of for the last 2 years.
Yeah.
In the last 2 years, this kind of work item or this kind of request took us at least 25 days to complete 100%.
Mm-hmm.
So 25 days versus 5 days, which even though we expedite, there could be other problems which could come in and we might not be able to finish it within 5 days. So that would give us a more data strong kind of like negotiation point. It's
Yeah.
data centric. It's
Mm-hmm.
not that we are making things up.
Yeah.
Estimation, like I get it, everyone needs to do a kind of estimation, but most of it is guesstimation. But when
Mm-hmm.
we look at this one, this has solid facts in it. It is not
Mm-hmm.
we are making it up, it is what the team took time to deliver
Absolutely. This
that.
is basically what happened.
Yes.
It's not what we think might happen. This is what happened in last 6 months or whatever. Yeah.
Yes. And that is a very strong negotiation point for me as a
Mm-hmm.
product manager, product owner, delivery manager, whatever my role is. If I'm talking to my stakeholder, I'm not saying that this is what the team has estimated. I would be
Mm-hmm.
more like, this is what the data shows us. This is what we
Absolutely.
can do. Are you happy with it? If
Yes.
not, let's talk about how much of it can we deliver within the
Mm-hmm.
time that we need.
That's right. That's right. And I also like to talk a little bit about the estimation because a lot of people like to estimate.
Yes.
So I would tell people that if the estimation works for you, if you
Mm,
estimated before and you deliver it based on the estimation and it worked, so continue doing it. But if it didn't, then this is another alternative and this is another option you have.
mm,
Another thing you can do is you can compare the lead time distribution chart. So basically what happened with your estimation. So
mm,
you can say, 50% of time we estimated 5 days, but in fact, everything took 15 days, right? So our estimation is not right,
mm,
things like that. So another thing we can learn from histogram is how team can be predictable,
mm,
right? So this is the actual data that I collected from one of the team, right?
mm,
And there is another one I want to show, which is this one. So
mm,
same data, same period of time for another team.
mm,
So as you can notice, this one has a long tail,
mm,
right? So when you look at your histogram, if the histogram has a long tail, that means less predictability and
definitely.
basically less agility,
Mm,
okay? So this team, they finish 64% of their work within 15 days. So this team has less agility and
mm,
it's less predictable, right?
mm,
Because around 40% of time, finished or completed outside of the SLA, if the
Mm,
SLA is 15 days,
mm,
right? So if we have a long tail, we need to see what happened. Why things took longer than expectation? Is this because of the context switch?
mm,
Is this because the priority change? Is this because the tasks are too big? Maybe we need to slice them,
mm,
right, to something that it fit into 15 days or something like that.
mm,
Another thing is if you work with the Scrum team,
mm,
you expect that work completed within, for example, 2 weeks sprint.
mm,
So in an ideal situation, your histogram for the Scrum team
mm.
should be basically everything should be finished in 10 days,
Yeah.
right? If it takes more than 10 days, then again, the question is, okay, what happened? Should we focus on, maybe more slicing or maybe automation or reduce the context switch and stuff like that?
Mm.
So basically, long tail, it's not good.
Mm. So fat tail and thin tail, right? So
Yes.
I'll again summarize what I understood, and you have to correct me if I got it right.
Mm-hmm.
So what we have heard all this while, the first thing that we have learned in the second part of the session is that when we are looking at the histogram or the distribution chart, there are two things that we need to look for. Where does the last point goes to? Like, where's the last bar situated? Is it like near the starting point, or it is stretching? So for example, what we call this in Kanban language is that the fat tail and thin tail. So the chart that we had a look before this, if you go back, if you scroll back to the top, that is a thin tail. So
Mm-hmm.
thin tail means that the team is more predictable. If you look at this chart, what I understood when you're talking about it, that we know that most of the work, are like whatever this work item type was, it got completed 100% of it within 25 days. So there is a more predictability in the team. That means the agility level is more.
Mm-hmm.
So the second thing that I understood when you were talking about it is that there's another kind that we should be looking at, which is the second distribution chart that you have shown. And this is a data from a different team
Mm-hmm.
where we could see that the bars are actually stretching far from the
Mm-hmm.
starting point, which is also called as a fat tail in
Mm-hmm.
Kanban language. That means that you have no certainty around that when is the 100% is going to be, like in which lead time,
Yeah.
um in number of days. So
Mm-hmm.
for example, you know for sure that 60%, 64% of the work is getting completed within 15 days. However, when you look at that, when is the 100% of the work is getting completed, you can see that it's actually going too far. It could
Mm-hmm.
be 60, 65 days, 70 days. So there is no certainty, there's no predictability, which also tells us that, okay, the agility in this team is low. And there
Mm-hmm.
could be a different kind of reason. One
Yeah.
could be that they are dependent on other teams,
Right.
and the other team, the priority is not the same as them. Or
Yeah.
it could be a lot of context switching. It could be changes in priorities. It could be, things are
The
not
tasks are
refined.
big.
Yeah. Or like it's lots of unknown which they failed to understand in the beginning. They started the work and they found out that, okay, it's like the complexity level is too high,
Yeah.
so they need to
Yeah.
like
Or
understand.
quality.
Yes,
Quality is low, and we found lots of bug during the test and QA and stuff like that. So
yes,
so if
kept
we have
up.
a long tail or fat tail,
Hmm.
uh, that that indicates that something is not right, and we need to investigate and figure out what we can do. The
What
goal is to shift everything to the left, because shorter tail means more predictability and more agility. Longer tail or a fat tail means less predictability and less agility.
that is.
Another really important things that we can get out of this histogram
Hmm.
is to negotiate with the customer and come with a realistic SLA or expectation, because a lot of time, we have an SLA which is not quite realistic. So, for
Mm.
example, they say, okay, the SLA is 10 days, right?
Yeah.
And I ask them, okay, why 10 days? Where that 10 days comes from, right?
Mm.
Because when I look at this one, if the SLA is 50%, 10 days, then we can deliver only 50% of task, right? Which means 50% of the work will be outside of the SLA. So I think the first step is to agree with something realistic,
Yes.
so we can achieve customer satisfaction at least.
Mm.
And then what we can do to improve it, right? Because if we have an unrealistic SLA, then you always under pressure. And when you always under pressure, you have an unhappy customer and you also have unhappy delivery team. So they're always under pressure, they always work hard, but no one is happy, right? So first is to come with something realistic, talk
Mm.
to the customer expectation, set the right expectation. And
Mm.
also another thing is customer, if the SLA, if we agreed that it take us 15 days, then
Yeah.
customer needs to come and give us what they want at the right time when we expect it as well. So it's not just
Yes.
what customer wants, it's also about what delivery team expected, right? So it's a mutual agreement between both parties.
Yes. And that's really very valuable. And one thing to add to that, Oro, is that I also find it very helpful when we are tracking lead time per request that comes to the team. Like what I mean by that, let me explain. So let's say I work in a team which works on new features, which also works on support item, and which also
Mm-hmm.
works on incident like bugs and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if I'm trying to capture lead time for like everything as a whole. So let's say
Mm-hmm.
I also have a Scrum product backlog where
Mm-hmm.
everything is there. Now, what I'm trying, I start with just capturing lead time. Like how much does it take?
Mm-hmm.
But if I'm taking everything as a whole, that will might not give me the right idea because
Yes.
every kind of work is different and they might need different kind of attention and the workflow could be different. So when we are trying to understand the histogram or the distribution chart for lead time, it is really a good idea to understand for each kind of work that we have
Mm-hmm.
so that we can have those conversations with our stakeholder that why this could be five, let's say for an incident or a production incident,
Mm-hmm.
my 100%, like I can complete within 5 days because P1, if you think
Yes.
about it should be 2 days, right? Like
Yeah.
because something is really stuck because of that.
Yeah.
Whereas if it is a feature, my 100% is showing 25 days.
Mm-hmm.
And in both the cases, it's very valid because we are
That's
not
right.
trying to compare apple with oranges,
Mm-hmm.
but what the distribution chart is trying to show us that what's the reality and how
Yes.
can we get it better? How can we improve?
Absolutely. You raise a actually really good point. So ideally, what we need to do is we need to have different histogram for different type of work which come from different customer, right? And when we look at that, then you might realize that we delivered 100% of the work for customer one, but
Mhm.
customer two, we delivered maybe 40% within the
Exactly.
expectation.
Yes.
So that also another really good point. And then we can ask, okay, so
Mm.
what can we do to make sure that we satisfy all customers, not just focus on one customer and so we have one happy customer, but we have, everyone else not quite satisfied.
Mm. That's right. And so I think we did learn a lot today about lead time distribution chart, and this should be really helpful. I mean, it certainly is going to help anyone in a team who is trying to negotiate based on data.
Mm-hmm. No, that's I think that's quite important. So as I said, I will share the article, and also about a year ago I create this video which is on my personal YouTube channel.
Mm.
Um, So people can also watch that video as well. So I basically talk about pretty much the same thing and explain how to read histogram and how you can be predictable without necessarily estimating the work. But if you like to estimate and if that works for you, please continue doing it.
And on estimation, just one more thing to add there. So the benefit of estimation is alignment within the team about what the problem is and how to solve it. So sometimes that's the benefit we should be focusing on, because that's really important. So I really always encourage people estimating together, because when you estimate together as a team, you are getting on the same page, that what is the customer problem we are trying to focus on. But lead time could actually help you with having a conversation with your stakeholder. So even teams are doing estimation, that is amazing, but lead time could actually help you to improve how you are presenting your data back to your stakeholder or negotiating with your stakeholder. So what Orod is trying to say, that you don't have to stop estimation, but you can actually start tracking the data in this lead time distribution chart, and this could help you to get another perspective about the timeline that you are going to forecast for delivering anything.
Sure. Cool. All right. I guess that's it for today, Soma. Is there anything else you want to talk about? Is there any uncertainty about lead time distribution chart or histogram and how to read the lead time?
I think I did understand it well. Like if I am, just attending it for the first time and I tried to summarize it. So I believe that we are good. And if we have any question on this, please post it on our LinkedIn or on YouTube channel so that we can answer those questions for everyone.
Absolutely. All right. Thanks everyone for listening and watching this episode. And we come back next week.
Definitely. Thank you, everyone. And watching this is a better recommendation, especially for this episode. And
Yeah.
thank you so much, Orod, for explaining the lead time for all of us.
Thanks.